Upfront Toronto podcast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Upfront Toronto, conversations with people that move the city forward. I'm really happy to introduce Chris Sue from Dango Bake Lab.
Cake Lab.
Cake Lab.
Cake Lab.
I'm going to do this again. I'm looking.
So, Christopher, it happens every time.
I fuck up the names, not the name of the business. So.
It's right on his screen.
Okay. I'm going to do this again.
Yeah. All right, let's do it.
Welcome, everyone, to Upfront Toronto, conversation with people that make the city move forward. I'm really happy to introduce Chris Sue from Dango Cake Lab. And Liza is with us today also. Chris is really interesting. I met him once at a dinner a few years ago in Kensington Market. I just walked by his store with someone and there was one extra seat, and he asked, and he knew you, Chris, and you just joined us on a whim. And then we had a really nice evening together with a bunch of other interesting people. So you have an interesting story. You're a pharmacist. At 2015, you attended or participated in the first MasterChef. You also completed your pharmacy doctorate. Yeah. In 2017, you opened your first bakery in Scarborough. It's an amazing bakery. I follow you on Instagram. I make sure I don't miss any posting because, you do modern French style baking with Asian influences and contemporary design, which is just beautiful. I'm so envious of your abilities. And everyone who sees this is in awe. I know a few people who joined your Instagram page just because of the beauty of the baked goods. You currently own 2 stores, one in Scarborough and Kensington, and I think 2 or 3 more stores to open, and I'll let you talk about that. And does that kind of summarize things?
Yeah, that sounds pretty good. I think I couldn't have done a better job myself.
Thank you. I just want to say this was my second take, so sometimes that goes on. So I'd like to talk about your business, and I think the obvious questions are: you were a trained pharmacist and jumped ship into the baking world. I can see commonalities in terms of baking and being accuracy and times, and it's a very precise job. Do you have anything to like? How did your family respond when you after you got your degree and you jumped to and you wanted to be a baker?
Yeah, I think obviously the initial response is there's a little bit of hesitancy, there's a little bit of fear involved, a little bit of worry for me. But I think, over a couple of years and showing them that the business was growing and I was able to handle whatever challenges were being thrown at me, they sort of had a little, they felt a little bit better about letting me make that decision. But definitely at first it wasn't easy. I had spent, I spent 4 years just doing the undergrad, not including the additional 4 years to complete the Doctor of Pharmacy. So, all in all, 8 years, of which I only practiced 2 years afterwards. I mean, some people would say that it was like, might be a bit of a waste, but I don't really think so. I think it's exactly like you said, science and baking go hand in hand. And more often than not, especially, you kind of need that science background, or you need to eventually find someone with that science background in order to grow and advance your business. So actually, it may actually be a stroke of luck. Who knows? Time will tell as things progress. But so far I have used a lot of the pharmacy knowledge and the science and things I've learned in school and applied them to our baked goods as well, just in ways of keeping them more shelf stable and trying to improve flavor and and also how to create those whimsical designs that we have.
So I imagine, I keep going back. I'm trying to imagine you telling your parents that your mom, dad, I'm a baker. It's like almost like a coming out process of, and I have some experience with that, and it wasn't easy. What was
the catalyst? What was the catalyst though, Christopher? So you finished schooling, mm-hmm. you were in the pharmacy for 2 years, and then what happened that you changed your mind?
So I had always been baking since I was a kid, probably since I was 6. And what started it all was my dad used to make cheesecakes for us when we were younger, like 6 years old or so, from what I remember. And it's not like he did it every year. It was just, I guess, something that he tried to do to make that year extra special and, give us something on our birthday. But it wasn't like a special recipe or anything. No, it's the back of the Philadelphia cream cheese package. And,
The
but
go-to.
yeah, right, the go-to. But it's not really so much about the cheesecake as it is about the memory and the experience, right? And I think that's what really carried me forward and what was really ingrained in my memory as I continued forward.
What
So
is
I
it
always,
that you remembered the most? Like, what if you made the cake? What is it that made you come back to it and become a baker? Was it the people? Was it the flavor? Was it being proud about what you can make?
definitely a mix of all of them. I love, first of all, the science aspect of it, putting things together, and it's almost like magic because, with a little bit of work and it turns into a completely new product. And you would never think that way, especially when you're a kid and you're seeing things like flour and eggs and butter. These are raw materials, and suddenly, poof, you have a cake. But also seeing the smiles on people's faces. Starting Dango was really going back to my childhood and thinking about, oh, what a magical moment, how much joy it brought me, and how can I replicate and recreate that for other people. And then, of course, finally, I just love eating. So that's always an excuse to eat more desserts.
So when you decided to open a bakery, can you take us through what was going through your mind? I'd say before you signed the lease for the first place. That's the kind of, you have a thought and you have a mission and you make a lot of things, but you this is when you're committing financially to your dream. Can you take us through that? What you went through?
So prior to signing the lease, I remember I had already been looking for a couple months, and there was so much hesitancy because you just don't. It's such a big decision. Like once you sign it, you could sign for 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 5 year, whatever. Once you sign it, though, you have to commit. You have to follow through, and you have to actually get everything done. And I was so green at the time. I didn't even know how to write a business plan. I kept reading business plan templates online, but not understanding half of the words inside of it. And only having armed with me the knowledge of baking things from home, and I think what really carried me through was just the passion. I just saw at the sort of like that light at the end of the tunnel, knowing what I wanted to achieve, but not knowing how to get there, but just being passionate enough and persistent enough.
Was there anyone around you that gave you a hand or a help or advice that was critical in making this happen?
I think in the very beginning, I tried to reach out to as many people as possible. I had friends who were sort of entrepreneurial, who had small businesses. But from what I remember, they weren't really able to help me too much just because the field was different. My parents, my brother had never been, they'd never really done any business before, but they were willing to at least help me out on the financial side as I was starting up. And that was really helpful. In the beginning, they would not only help me with the bookkeeping and the financials, but also just help me packaging stuff and putting cakes in boxes.
That's amazing, though. Like you broke the trajectory of Pharmacist, and then you went to baking, and they not only did they not object to it, but they supported you with your new passion.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's something I think that is very difficult, especially for myself. And I think a lot of other Asian immigrant families, there's expectations for children to finish like your professional degree and then work in that. But over time, it gets it gets better. Oh, you know what? I did forget to mention one very important person. My fiance helped me tons and tons prior to opening. You know what? When I think back, before we opened, we had spent at least 2 years, right, baking from home, and we would stay up at night until probably 2 or 3 in the morning, just baking and making people's custom cakes and making people's macarons. And I remember on our opening day, there was like some glue or something stuck on the ground because we didn't have budget to change the tiling at our very first location. And so she was busy there scrubbing away at the floor, trying to get the glue off.
Yeah.
And
Bless
it
her. Oh my goodness.
yeah, it's absolutely crazy to think back about how we started. It was only a couple employees, pretty much my family jumping in to help out a little bit here and there, and really my fiance helping me push through to finish a lot of the things. And I think a lot of it too was me always thinking back and not wanting to only disappoint my family, but also my fiance, and wanting to prove to everybody that I would actually be successful.
So were you selling product before you opened the store? You started from your own kitchen. So you had proof of concept.
That's right. We have proof of concept. And I think at the time I was still working on the concept a little bit. A lot of the concepts were actually generated between myself and my fiance. She would come up with a lot of creative ideas, which I didn't really think to incorporate it. I guess it was good because she was also a pharmacist, actually. We met in pharmacy school. So, but I think the great thing was that she didn't take things from like as scientific and as, as much of a baking background, because she didn't really bake herself, but she had an eye for sort of what trends were coming, how, what sort of things would sell well on Instagram and on social media platform and marketing wise. And we worked together a lot to try to bring those ideas to life.
So does she work with you today, or is she working as a pharmacist?
She works full-time as a pharmacist, and then she actually comes to help out on the weekends still. I mean, I think we're at the point where she doesn't really need to help out per se, but she wants to help out because it's almost like we started, it's like you understand when you start a small business, it is like a baby. And it's hard to just let it go for other people to take care of, right? It's something you always want to be hands-on with, regardless of whatever size it might end up becoming.
Mm-hmm.
And what is the timing of the stores? Like what is the timing of you baking in your home and then moving to having a store and then to present day, just so we understand a timeline?
Yeah, so we started 2017 November. That was the very first store. Then Kensington came up in 2018 September.
Okay.
And then we sort of stagnated there because we were having a hard time keeping up production. So during that time, we actually started opening smaller kitchens. We were renting out industrial units as kitchens. So we opened up 2 more kitchens. And then 2019 November was when we first opened Dango Cafe, which is sort of my brunch concept. And then COVID happened, so things sort of slowed. The cafe closed. Luckily, the bakery was still doing fine, which is quite fortunate. And finally, we have this year where I won MasterChef Canada, and things are starting to open up again. So we've chosen our 2 new locations at Times Square and in Mississauga. And
will they be both cafes and bakeries? What would the concept be?
Both of them will be bakeries. So,
okay, so
we're continuing the bakery route and just shipping product from our kitchens over to those locations.
So it's interesting to see you have Googling your name, a bunch of stuff pops up. Obviously, you have a national name. People know you in Canada because of MasterChef, and you were there twice. Do you find, how much did that help you, the first round, in going to business? Did it give you that confidence that you can, or that people know you? Did it help you move forward with the business? And would you behave the same if you didn't have that notoriety?
I think absolutely it helped me with the business. It gave me a bit of a platform to work off of. And it wasn't just a platform, I guess. It was also the experience of meeting so many people and gaining so many new connections from the judges, which actually helped me, provide me a lot of experience and opportunities after the show ended. But also your fellow competitors who are sort of from all different walks of life. They all approach food from a different perspective. All those things, I think, come together to shape how I view food and how I want to create it.
What did you learn most about at Chef Chef? What did you learn most about yourself, like your personal, a personal part?
Well, at MasterChef, I think the first thing that became very obvious was I lived quite in a sense, sheltered and introverted life. I was always sort of the typical kind of student that liked to, keep to themselves, spend time in the library. most of my friends are books. And it was really like that. Yeah, in pharmacy as well. And I had a small group of friends, but, fortunately in pharmacy, I did start going out and being more, I guess, extroverted and trying to push myself to do new things. And sort of that was the beginning. And I think that was really, and thankfully I did that because that's how I met my fiance. But, that was sort of the beginning. And that was part of the reason why I applied for MasterChef too, was because I was trying to get out there more and just try to experience things. Who knows where they went or how things went. But eventually MasterChef happened, met lots of new people, and I just sort of expanded the way I looked at the world even more. And those experiences always accumulate and change the way that you approach things.
Yeah, I love seeing how introverted people, through serving people food or whatnot, that kind of allows them to grow out of their shell. And you today, I see you in front of a camera, it seems like you feel comfortable. I don't know if you do. Maybe you're being brave, but you're doing a really good job with that. And I always love to see that transformation. It's almost like a flower, and how humans grow, going against our nature. I know it seems to be the route you're taking. By the way, when I researched in LinkedIn, you're still a pharmacist that works at Shoppers from 2016 until today. So yeah, no, I haven't looked at my LinkedIn in a while. I never really had to, because I always had the one job with a bakery. So I fully understand that. What would you say, business-wise, was your biggest challenge in the past few years?
Yeah.
And I think with that, the biggest thing you've learned.
Mm-hmm. I mean, the past few years, we've gone from, just a couple of staff to having multiple stores, and there's so many challenges. I mean, I can't even list them all. But I think the biggest challenge is always, I always look at it, the biggest challenge is what the core of the business is and what I feel my role is towards the business. And that's always for product development. And whenever I'm creating new product, I think it's especially hard because a lot of the inspiration I get comes from travel or being able to see new things. Just a lot of times I try to incorporate everyday things into what we're making in a fun way, so that when people see it, they can relate to it quite easily.
So go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I was just saying that, yeah, that's always been a big challenge. Thankfully, when I started the business, I actually rely very heavily on my fiance when I started the business with her, because like I said, she brings that eye to sort of see things that are trending and things that are interesting. And then she pushes me actually to see if it can be incorporated into a lot of our pastries and cakes. So she actually did the design for the Mother's Day cake this year. And, at first I was kind of like, I'm not sure that's possible. And I think this happens a lot. I'm always kind of like questioning myself. Is that really possible? Can we really make that design? But it works out. And I think that's why it actually really helps me with product development.
So you're the idea person, the artist, your fiance provides you with outside information and pushes you forward. Who, like, if you have more than one store, you're growing, how are you, who takes care of the actual I guess scheduling and like there's so many employees, and do you have like a COO? Who does that?
So operations side of things, I had one manager that when I very first started, we had 4 or 5 people. She started growing with me and the company up until now, and now she's taken on a lot more of less of an operations side. It's kind of funny how people's roles change. They she now deals mostly with payroll, emails, that are directed for business, and she also runs. She kind of does miscellaneous tasks, I guess, because we're quite still a small business in terms of like fixing up the website, price changing, and working on all those things, and occasionally, throwing out new ideas. On top of that, we have one manager that just looks over the kitchen, one manager that just looks over the front store, and then one actual operations managers, which right now is in the process of helping me set up the new stores. So I think that's how we work, and they prefer that I stay in the kitchen and just work in and create new products.
Well, you're the face of the company also, and you're in the back of the kitchen, which kind of makes sense. It's nice to see. How do you handle stress then?
Um, you know, I think I was very lucky in a sense to have completed my pharmacy degree first, because that was a lot of stress. The amount of things we had to learn and projects and ongoing lectures and everything. It was packed day to day. And so I think I've learned to just deal with things one at a time. I think it's I hate having, everything done 50% or 40% unless I have to. I think this is probably one of the most stressful times in my life because, I have this half completed renovation. I got to start submitting the permits for the next location. And there's a bunch of things that are half finished. I got 2 cakes that I'm working on, that I'm developing, that are half finished. And
Good.
yeah, I'm like, I'm just working at them a little bit because some of them are just, I can't do anything. It was like you realize that I'm missing this piece of equipment to finish this cake in order to make 100 of them. And you realize, okay, no, we'll now have to order that. Okay, well, that's going to take 2 weeks. Okay, let's focus on something else. Oh, we're working on the renovations and the fire sprinkler guys can't come in until next week. Okay, well, we can't do inspection until that's
so
done.
so for those of you who are just listening to us, Chris has a big smile on his face. I'm getting stressed inside right now, like knowing how it is, even with one store. So keeping business afloat, opening a place, and still developing new products. That's crazy amount of work. So like, can you describe a day? Like, what time do you wake up? When do you go to sleep? Do you get any time for yourself?
I think every day is a little different because some days I will actually go back to, like, some days I'll wake up late because I'll actually go back to the bakery at 8 or 9. And that's when I'll start doing my product development because we are so stretched for space right now that I can't even work during the day because I don't want to get in everyone's way. So I'll go back when everyone's gone and I'll work till maybe like 2 in the morning or something, just to work on a new recipe or finish things up. And then, the following morning I'll wake up late. Like, I think the one thing that's really nice is because my operations managers, front store manager and everything have taken the day-to-day tasks off of me. They sort of just rely on me to cover all of the other things, which are, I guess, less schedule driven unless I have specific meetings or appointments set up for that day.
Very cool.
And how
Chris-
long does it take to develop? Oh, I think I hope my internet is okay. How long does it take to develop a cake? Like, let's say you have the equipment or even factoring that in. What is the time process for something like that?
Yeah, it's so different depending on what is being created. And there's so many things that can go wrong or right. I mean, sometimes you could create something and by the end of 2 weeks, it's come out just because everything went the way you wanted it to. But more often than not, you start something and you're like, oh, I am missing A, B, C, whether that be equipment, technique, or the recipe is just not working the way that you intended it to based on the number. Because I'm very scientific too when I'm coming up with recipes. I always I break down everything into whatever content, the fat content, the protein, the water, the sugar, so that you kind of have an idea already when you write the recipe, what the final product is going to look like. But it doesn't always happen that way. There are so many extraneous factors that can affect it. So this particular cake I'm working on, I think I've been working on it for like 6 months now. Because there were so many moving parts to it. And I guess just to give you an idea of it, it's basically a cake that's in the shape of a lucky cat. And the body is made of cake, but the head is filled with sort of like coins and like chocolate coins and stuff.
Oh
so
my
that
God. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it's halfway between a smash cake, which is very popular and trending right now, and a real cake. So you can kind of break it open, but you can also have your cake. And that was a huge amount of time because first we had to get the dies done. Right, we had to get a 3D designer to do the model. Then we had the die done to get the custom molds done, which are polycarbonate. After they were
This is an engineering project in addition to a bakery product.
Along with some alchemy too.
I think that's what makes us special, right? Like I spend this time and I really try to incorporate as many things as I can into it to make every one of our products that much more special. Yeah, and anyways, we had lots of other things too going on because then we realized that each shell simply weighed too much. So we had to purchase a new chocolate tempering machine that was larger in size. Then after we got that, the look of it wasn't coming out right. We had to purchase a different spray gun for spraying the chocolate so we can get a different effect on it. And, it's just one after the other.
Chris, I'm
And how
curious.
often-
I do
Okay, go ahead.
development also, and I find that you know where you want when you see it when it's right, it's right. Although in your, I think there's a lot more moving parts in your development. What's the biggest mistake that was a win for you? I know so many times you make
Mm.
you aim at a certain direction, but then the universe shows you otherwise. But then it turns into this great opportunity. Do you have any of those?
I know I do. I don't have any off the top of my head right now, but I know exactly what you're talking about
Okay.
because so many times, you know what, I think maybe it's even just almost like a regular thing, right? Because a lot of times innovation really is just taking the mistake that happened and working your way around it to into the final product.
Yeah. Yeah, I love how
And
you
do you
need
get
to have
to
an
ever get
open
to a
mind for innovation. Like you cannot be fixated on anything.
Mm-hmm.
do you ever
Absolutely.
get to a point, Chris, where you think, okay, we have to stop now. This is not worth it. We're giving up. Let's just throw in the bag. Or do you just keep trying and you know you're going to get it?
Very rarely, very, very rarely. I think that may have only happened once. Usually my go-to is to set it aside for a little bit and then approach it again in a few weeks or a month and try to take the problem from a different perspective.
I think that's huge
Okay.
advice, by the way. You may do that naturally. I've been in business for over like 25 years, and it's not easy. It's not easy to let go, and then things settle. The noise kind of settles, and then you settle, and you when you come back to it, you look at it in a completely different, with fresh eyes. I'd say
Mm-hmm.
9 times out of 10, you actually can do something about it. That is,
Yeah,
I love that.
I think too, not just with new things, but even with the old products, right? You come back more experienced with a different set of eyes, and then you change your old product for the better.
Chris, where do you see Dango in 5 years? Do you see other things, I mean, in your life other than Dango? Or like if you can paint a picture of the future?
Yeah, I honestly, I haven't really thought too much about it. I think when I tried Dango Cafe, I have a huge love for brunch and I do love cooking as well. So that was sort of my trial for it. But you know, it ended up being, I think, not as much, I didn't have as much passion and love for it as I thought I might have had. And so, you know, that's part of the reason why we haven't reopened yet. I'm a little bit scared of it to be honest. But you know, now I think in the next 5 years I will be mostly focusing on the Cake Lab. I really want us to have this, you know, amazing lineup of products that, you know, are not only beautiful to look at and delicious, but also able to be replicated so that, you know, people all around the world could enjoy it. Yeah.
So that's ambitious all around the world. Do you see
Yeah.
yourself? Yeah. What do you have in mind? Where can
Yeah.
you see yourself or
Yeah, so
Dango?
at the end of this month, I'll be going to Vancouver to try to see if I can open some, you know, try to look for locations. And I do have a business partner in mind who's going to be helping me with the project. And, you know, if that goes well, we do have plans possibly to expand into Asia or down into the States. But I know that's a whole nother, that's a whole nother challenge. And I'm just throwing it out there. But it seems like every year, we're sort of get a little bit more and more ambitious and we are able to pull through. And I think that's great.
Is there anyone in Asia doing similar stuff to you? I mean, Asia has a very
Mhm.
specific, I mean, I can't even say Asia because there's so many countries and it's so different. But I don't know where you're assuming, is it Hong Kong or I don't know?
Yeah, I think that a lot, well, first of all, I mean, the first part, yeah, there's a lot of people, I think, doing what we do already, whether it's from Korea to Taiwan to Japan to Hong Kong to Singapore, Malaysia. I think you'll always find, because that style, that cute style, fun, whimsical style is sort of much more prevalent in Asia. So I wouldn't be surprised at all. And I do believe I've probably seen some already on Instagram, but I don't think that should stop us. I think we still have a unique style, and I think I still approach everything from a different perspective. And so, you know, it never really hurts. I think sometimes people are always worried about, like currently at our Times Square location in Richmond Hill, we're opening up beside another pre-existing bakery. And a lot of people are saying, oh, you know, aren't you worried about competition and, you know, them taking your customers? I'm like, it doesn't matter. when you are beside another bakery, even though they're selling similar things, you still have your own clientele, you still have your own customer base, and you still reach a different demographic. Yes, undoubtedly, there will be some transition of customers from one store to the next, but it's not in any way a negative thing.
I used to be very concerned about competition, and I wanted to be unique and different. And I think that there's a whole lot of not like a negative with that, where you have to educate your customer about where you're at, what you're doing, if your product is different. So, and today I'm like, no, if I'm opening a pizza shop, I want to go to where most of the pizza shops are. And then there's synergy with that group, and it becomes a destination. And the world is so much bigger than we think it is. It's almost there's a big win for it. So I think if in Asia they're familiar with that style of product, you bring in your own unique angle on it, you could do really well, because you don't need to educate them. Like 100% of the population is interested in something similar to what you make, which could be easier for you.
That's so true. Yeah, that's extremely, extremely true. And I know exactly what you mean when you're saying like the world is so much bigger. You don't even realize it until you start reaching it, and you're just like, oh wow, yeah. It's infinite. The customer base really is infinitely reaching, always growing.
Yeah, you've got various locations, so you're sort of you've got a good scattering, it seems. But one of your locations is in Kensington, so let's just dive in on that a little bit in terms of how is that different from your other locations in terms of your clientele and people that come and find you, because you're sort of in such diverse areas.
Yeah, I chose you know what, when I chose Kensington, it wasn't as though I had a big business plan or I looked at the demographic or anything. I just loved Kensington Market because, you know, I went to U of T and I always went to Kensington Market for lunch. And so I love the vibe there. I just wanted to open there. When I opened there though, yes, the demographic was significantly different. You know, we had a lot more American tourists, you know, prior to COVID. A lot of the locals who were doing grocery shopping and things like that. And then of course you had your group of students that were coming through all the time. And so we sort of did have to change our product up a little bit. I remember I started offering cookies and things and sort of like items that you could just pick up and walk on your way with, because I realized that a lot of people in Kensington were, you know, more of a grab and go kind of an area. And especially tourists, they weren't really always able to buy it. So in terms of like what we were selling a lot of macarons and we were selling a lot of cookies, but we weren't selling a lot of cake, right? Whereas uptown in Scarborough, it was mostly cake and very little cookies. And the macarons were still pretty strong in Scarborough as well.
And where do you live? Like you personally, like not an exact address, mind you, but where do you live in terms of your locations?
So me and my fiance, we live downtown near the waterfront.
Okay. So, and what's your sort of favorite neighborhood in the city? Like, where do you guys hang out when you're not working, which seems like it's probably always, but.
No, we always make time to go out, because I think that's equally as important. The relaxation and the rest is also just as important as the work, right? And also going out allows us to sort of get new ideas and create new products together. So I think that, you know, it's vital. It's vital. Some people love working, and sometimes you lose track of how important that day of rest is.
Yeah, I think
that's where the ideas can come.
That as a developer, I also consider myself a developer and was for our bakery. And then you get the ideas when you're away, usually. So traveling, where do you like to travel, or where do you get away in the city? I think what Lisa is asking, and then where do you get away outside the city? What are your favorite places?
So we love going to Chinatown. It's just because when we were at U of T and we were both studying together, we would always go to Chinatown for like lunch and dinner. So that's always one of our favorite places to walk up and down. And it's very interesting because there's a lot of little, there are these little stores that sell different kind of knickknacks in Chinatown. And you'll see clothing outside, you'll see like lanterns inside, and it's a bunch of mishmash, slippers outside. But it's things like that are always so interesting and fun to look at, I find, because you never know what's going to be inside, and sometimes you're kind of like, how do these things go together? And, you know, when you think of it like that, you sometimes you take on a new perspective as well.
Do you have any any stores you recommend in Chinatown? I pass by there a lot on Dundas and Spadina, but I never know where to go in. Is there anything you recommend?
Food-wise or
Either. Food-wise, definitely. And I want to know where I see slippers inside and something completely different inside.
so slipper sorry, the food-wise first. Our favorite place to go to is called Andau. And it is right at I believe Nassau in Spadina. Is it Nassau? No, is it sorry. It's the street, you know how Kensington Baldwin cuts
Yes.
across Spadina and turns into a different street. Anyway,
It's where the LCBO is.
Yeah, but a little bit further north of that.
Okay.
Anyways, Andau, they are like a family-run Vietnamese place, and the sort of the second generation has just taken over. But we have always gone there. Their food is amazing.
What's their name again?
Andau. So it's
Andau.
A-N-A and then D-A-O.
Okay, cool.
The food is fantastic. And in terms of knickknacks and stuff, obviously, I mean, I think Tap Fung is a staple. I mean, they're obviously a well-known and well-run store, but when you walk in, they do have a lot of little knickknacks and things in terms of like dishware and products that you might only see in Asia. And that's always really good. But even just at the corner, when you enter Kensington, there's a little store called something trading. I can't really remember. But yeah, they have everything. They got everything from packaging to home utensils, clothing, little, it's got everything, dishes and plateware.
Yeah, I'm so hoping that that both Chinatown and Kensington don't change their atmosphere too much. I mean, prices of real estate and all are affecting things. So do you have any opinion? Do you want them to freeze in time and stay, or do you see them changing?
Unfortunately, I do believe there is. I mean, there's a huge push for the gentrification of Kensington and Chinatown. There's been so much development in the last couple of years. That's been halted a bit by COVID. But I think things are changing quite rapidly. Even just walking through there, you'll see how many new buildings have come out. And even some buildings that unfortunately, structural damage due to fire or whatnot have been replaced. But Kensington is going through huge gentrification. When I started there, I think, even when I started there, the store I took over from the previous tenant was somebody who had been there for, I think, close to 40 years. And slowly over the years, all these places started just changing into, I guess, like more trendy stores, like bubble tea stores and snacks and more ice cream popping up. And it's become catered more and more towards the tourism and students as opposed to for the locals. And my opinion on it, I think it's a natural progression of things. It's not something that you can really fight. Your local demographic changes, they age, right? And new people move in, and things just have to move in that direction in order to keep sustaining themselves. I know a lot of people talk about gentrification as though it's a negative thing, but I think it's just really a natural process that comes with whatever else is occurring around it.
Yeah, I think it comes with real estate prices shooting up through the sky, and you have to pay rent at the end of the day, and it keeps going up. So you need to figure out your way around that.
Exactly, and there's so many factors to it, right? And it's not one thing that can be controlled.
Yeah. Liza, I think we froze. Okay, so yeah, she's out in the Liza is in the country, so we sometimes have. What do you think? So when we compare, when I see entering a city business wise, I see a lot of brands usually going outside the city and moving in. So you're going to the suburbs and whatnot, and then opening in the city, or vice versa. You seem to started with Scarborough, opened a location in Kensington, but now you're going back to Richmond Hill and Mississauga. Is it easier for you going to the suburbs? Does the customer base there know you better?
Absolutely. I think customer base is one thing. Obviously, opening in the suburb areas, we have a lot of people coming from those suburbs to our location right now. One very interesting thing I sort of found was that being downtown, we actually reached a smaller radius in terms of demographic than we would uptown, just because people don't really drive, they take public transport, and with the heavy competition downtown, they could just as well easily go to a different bakery for a cake than come all the way to Kensington. And so I find with the suburbs, your product, as long as it's kind of niche and very, very specialty, people will come out and drive and come your way. And so because of that, I just feel like suburbs are an easier place to start a new business and also to grow a clientele.
Yeah, I think you're looking at the strip between Bay Street and Spadina on Dundas. You'll have like amazing Asian bakeries that seem unique, and that is your competition, right?
Exactly. And there's a difference in the product, obviously, but it's sometimes hard to also educate your customer, exactly like you said, about that. And so I find that in the suburbs, you kind of just let it grow organically. The word spreads and people drive out to your bakery, and it becomes a much easier task than having to always constantly promoting yourself.
I like that.
Who is your favorite? Sorry.
Right.
Who is your favorite competitor? I mean, you're very unique, but who do you love?
My favorite competitor. I think my favorite competitor is that's a tough one. Oh man, I don't want to offend anyone. But you know what? I have to be honest.
You can put it on the shelf and come back to it later if you want.
I do have somebody. I think it would be Andrew from my previous season. So it's very interesting because we competed together back on season 2, and then we met each other again on season 7. And I think what was really interesting was that, both of us had sort of undergone our own food journeys. He opened a restaurant, and he was very well practiced. He was so much stronger of a competitor than, either of us were much stronger than we were previously. And I think it was great to see that someone else had taken that journey too, to really push themselves and improve themselves in terms of culinary. And to almost have somebody to connect to, whereas the other people I didn't really know them as well. They were sort of new competitors, and they were new faces to me. So that was nice, because it's not like everybody who gets on MasterChef afterwards, they decide to pursue a career in food, right?
Yeah. I find through the years, the competitors that I was afraid of or ready to kill, I usually a few years later should be sending them bouquets of flowers, because at the time that was a so-called negative effect, but it did push me forward to succeed and to get better. And I should be thankful for them. And do you think the same thing?
I absolutely agree. You're so afraid of them because you look at their product and you're like, how are they doing that? How can they keep doing that time after time? But it's interesting because sometimes you don't realize, like, oh, that product was being made, but it was a loss leader. It was never profitable for them, or things that you don't discover those things until much later on, where you have improved your processes and your product to the point where you're kind of like, oh, okay, I feel okay with their existence now.
Yeah, and it comes back to what we said earlier about the world being much bigger than we think. It's so weird. Like when we sell in supermarkets, and also in the US, for instance, and the numbers there, sometimes you have, I don't know, hundreds to thousands of people visiting a large supermarket a day. And then if you come up with a product and you sell 5 items a week per SKU, that's considered good. And it drives me crazy. I'm so disappointed when it's 10, double. And only 10 per week are taking this. And these are really good numbers. Just showing us how much bigger the world is.
Yeah, that's so true. Yeah, I think that's also a fun thing too. You never know what's going to happen, right? You kind of put it out there and you have expectations, and sometimes they are way above those expectations, and sometimes they're way under, and you just have no idea what to expect.
I remember when we opened our first store at Yonge Street, I stood at Wellesley and Yonge. I knew nothing, and I looked at all the thousands of people walking down the street, and I'm like, oh my God, we're gonna be so rich. If 1 out of 100 of these people buys product in our store, I'm going to be I already started spending the money before we opened our first business. And, obviously it was way harder to get people in. And even the people just walking on the street didn't come in. It was everyone in the communities around working and living that became our customers, not necessarily the passerbys.
Yeah. I was actually just at Parallel the other day too. picking up a couple of things.
Amazing. You should tell me when you go there.
Yeah. I was thinking, I was like, should I
Text
message him?
me.
It's okay. I'm just in and out. I'm just picking up a couple of things. I was bringing back some of the cookies and also some of the halwa for the staff at the bakery.
So you can see George, our chef and partner. He's
Mhm.
amazing. He he's from Israel, and the baking there is. I think it's a great way to learn about different different bakes and countries and society. Yeah, baking. I'm losing my words here, but next time you come, let me know, and we can sit in the front and have something too.
For sure, for sure.
Well, sesame butter. Do you use sesame butter in any way in your baking?
We used to use it actually for one of our cakes, but now we don't have any sesame products. But I was actually, that's what I was thinking when I came by. I was remembering how I remember you were telling me the story about how you brought this huge stone back, just to grind sesame, and you were importing the sesame seeds so that you get the specific variety, so that you get that, the flavor that you're looking for. And I was just thinking, I'm like, man, I really need to pick up like all of your sesame products so I can try them in every single form.
Okay. Liza, this just turned into a sales call. So, Chris, I'll be delivering a big pail of sesame butter to wherever you want, and just play with it. No obligation whatsoever. It's okay.
And this is how the ideas begin.
Yeah.
Chris,
absolutely.
do you advertise, or is it primarily you do? Okay. So what is your form of I'm just curious because is it word of mouth? I mean, social media is so big these days, but how else do you go about it?
Well, honestly, we have a very small, I wouldn't even call it a marketing budget. We just pay for advertising as we need it, because we don't really have a marketing team to say. So it's not like anybody's out there doing the analytics and looking at the metrics all the time. So it's kind of like when we have a new product, we launch it. I think personally, I do most of the PR work for the company, right? Whether it be MasterChef or just, I do pop-ups around the city, or I join in, on other things, or do giveaways, things like that. But I'm always out there trying to do some promotion for Dango. And that's really our major source, I guess. That's one of the really nice things, is how I sort of started on MasterChef and then moved into the bakery. And then that itself always has a snowball effect, right? So the PR from there just sort of grew.
Yeah, the timing is great.
Yeah.
And do you have a charity that is close to your heart?
Let me think. What is Sick Kids is one of the big ones, because when I was a kid, I had pneumonia, and I was in Sick Kids for a bit of an extended duration as I was recovering. So that's always been a hospital that's very important to me. But my fiance also works at Toronto General, so I think both of those are very important to me.
Yeah, Sick Kids comes up a lot. It seems people have there's experiences there, and it ends up being close to them.
Sick Kids, we unfortunately, I have a lot of experience with them, and I think they're outstanding. And that new building they're building on Elizabeth Street across from their existing facility is unbelievable. And you see, people are treated there so well. I support them also in ways that I can. Very cool. Liza, do you want to do quick fire?
Yeah, we could do that for sure.
Let's wrap it up. We may put this in, we may not. And
Okay.
Well, let's have some fun anyway. All right. Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Oh, you had to think about it though.
No. I think
you had to think about. Okay.
Delay okay. I say coffee. This is always a hard one, because I think a lot of people know me for tea. And if you follow my journey, I went to go compete at a Hong Kong milk tea competition in Hong Kong. And growing up, Hong Kong milk tea is a huge part of my life. But there's just something about coffee that I think my parents never let me drink it as a kid. It's kind of like that forbidden fruit.
Yeah.
And so
I understand.
So what's your favorite coffee shop? I'm ruining this.
It's okay.
Where in the city?
It always changes, because I find that my taste changes all the time. Right now, it's probably Most. I don't know if you know Most.
No, I know the name, but where are they?
The one me and my fiance always go to is the one right in the waterfront park. But I think they have a couple locations around the city, and I have no idea what bean. They're very secretive about what beans they're using, because I have no idea. And even when I sometimes glance behind the counter, they even have their own packaging on it, so you can't even see what's inside of it. So I don't know where the beans are coming from, but they have this really great aroma to them, and it changes all the time. Like before this, I loved going to Neo, and especially I love their cold brew because it was like this kind of like cherry, chestnut, and cocoa flavor. And it just changes. I mean, my taste changed, right? I feel like drinking something different every couple months.
Yeah, I think
Gotcha.
after tasting the same thing for, it's like working in a certain place and you eat and smell the same thing at the end of, you're sick of it. So changing it up is actually, our palate needs that almost.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise,
Yeah.
what we get used to becomes the norm.
Yes. Yeah.
That's why,
it kind of dulls too.
yeah, that's why I like the coffees where single origin and all, and so
Mm.
it's kind of not necessarily all matched to be exactly the same flavor, but it will change with season, with where it comes from. And I'm
Mhm.
gonna check them out now.
Yeah, most just try their drip coffee. Yeah, it's quite interesting.
We'll do that.
All right. Okay, we'll continue. We'll go back to the rapid
Yeah.
fire. All right. Dark or milk chocolate?
Dark.
Beer, wine, or whiskey?
Whiskey.
Breakfast, lunch, or dinner?
Breakfast.
Home cooked meal or takeout?
Oh, takeout.
City or countryside?
City.
Favorite season?
Fall.
Night out or stay home?
Night out.
Morning person or night owl?
Night owl.
2 a.m. in the
Well,
bakery.
I was going to guess
Liza.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you're in the, well, not only that, but if you're in the bakery you're starting something at 9 o'clock at night, you
No,
have
did
to
you
have
notice
some night
that he
owl
said
in
I
you.
woke up late and I started at 8 a.m. So that's for a baker late.
Yeah.
Bath or shower?
Bath.
When entering the swimming pool, do you jump in or do you tiptoe slowly?
Tiptoe.
Cat or dog person?
Dog.
Books or Netflix?
Netflix.
Phone calls or texts?
Phone calls.
Phone calls. And music or podcasts?
Podcasts.
Good answer.
Very cool. Chris, we really appreciate your time. Thank you very much. I learned a bunch of stuff here. I think every entrepreneur's path is so interesting. And on one hand, it's so individual, but on the other hand, we share a lot. And I think people will learn a lot from listening to you. You are opening 2 new stores at Richmond Hill, at Times Square and Mississauga. And anything else you want to promote or tell our listeners?
No, nothing. I just want to say thank you so much for this opportunity. It was really fun. I'm really glad I got to do it. So thank you so much for inviting me.
Our pleasure.
Thank you
And where
very
can
much.
they find you on social? Because those pictures are spectacular and should
Oh,
be
yeah.
by many.
Yeah, so on Instagram, my handle is @bakersiu. That's BAKERSIU. Our store is at Dango Cake Lab, so same as the store sign above my head. And you can also find us at www.dango.com.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Chris.
The Upfront Toronto podcast.